Hey everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. It's another week of Lettermen Live. We've survived. It's brought to you by Roosters, a fun casual joint for a fun casual conversation. I'm Austin Ward, joined by my Lettermen Row colleagues over there, Spencer Holbrook and Jeremy Birmingham. And just one Buckeye with us this week, but we've got the best one, right? Justin Zwick in the building, hanging out with us as we try and survive. Maybe we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. Maybe we could get back on a Roosters patio in a week or maybe two. We're trying to formulate some plans along with our partners there so that we can get out of this Zoom meeting, get Justin back out of the house. He's already getting rid of the facial hair, so you know he's preparing to get out into the open.
They want to scare too many people when I start going out.
It seems like, guys, that so all this progress is incremental and none of it is definitive or permanent. It can all change. But last week there were a couple, signs that maybe college football will be back. I think I've been saying that over and over, that in some form or fashion will be played. But you had, I'm going to just call them Big Ten and Pac-12 governors. You had Mike DeWine putting in for his season tickets at Ohio State, which might be just a symbolic measure, but it's at least one sign that he thinks there's an option for football to be played. And then out in Oregon, where you've got that big September non-conference game, this update wasn't quite as encouraging. Where I think her name's Kate Brown said that there weren't going to be, concerts, sporting events with crowds and through September. So that doesn't rule out that game could be played, but there's going to have to probably be some concessions made. Then there's all these other plans that they're talking about with not, just playing conference games only or, whatever, you push the schedule back a month. Jay-Z, when you look at this, and nobody has to make a prediction because there's a long way to go, are you more optimistic today than you were last week or a month ago that we're going to have a season in 2020?
Gosh, yes. I just have a feeling that once all this stuff starts to kind of open slowly and you start to get out and get back to normal life, I think America is a country of one that, all right, we're on to the next thing. They want to focus on something, then we're on to something new. And I think, and I hope that these slow rollouts and things can continue to go good. You see Georgia has had some lower numbers. They've been back open a little bit. You hope you see more and more of those stories to where it's like, all right, people start getting their confidence back, saying, all right, you know what? We went through it. We lowered everything. We did the best we could. Now let's move on. And then I think that just snowballs, just like anything, whether it's hysteria of staying inside or, getting back out, it's going to snowball. And if we can have some success and some good numbers coming out, I think they, I don't want to say hit the reset button on their thoughts, but just say, all right, things are going well. Let's just go ahead and start moving forward. I hate the idea of even talking about September right now. That's been, everything's been so daily or weekly, different, updates. For those people to come out and say, well, I don't know about school next fall. Like, what are we talking about next fall for? Let's talk about,
talking about June. Yeah.
Let's talk about what we're doing now to try and move forward instead of speculating on this or that. So I really hope, and I think that, as this gets back out and we start to get back out and to live our normal lives, that we can say, you know what, we can do this. And, gives that confidence to people and to the higher up saying, all right, we're not going to be the bad guys if we go back and say, yeah, you can play football. And, I think you get that confidence of the people behind them. They'll change their tune a little bit. So I'm very hopeful. And, you see some schools, I think the SEC had 7 schools say they'll be back in the fall, so you start seeing that, you start, everybody else is going to be saying, well, if they're going to do it, maybe that gives us the opening to say we're going to be back in the fall. Yeah. So
I don't think it's a coincidence that the SEC is taking the lead on that, as football craze as that is. And, the Big Ten is right there with them, especially with, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, how important it is to those athletic departments. But there's been a little more caution, I think, in the Big Ten footprint than there has been down in the SEC, which, it just means more, right, Berm?
Number one, Kate Brown sounds like a made-up name.
I might have made it up. I'm not sure. There's 50.
I don't think that's a real person. I don't think that's a real person because a real person, as Jay-Z said, wouldn't be thinking about shutting things down in September right now. That's just idiotic. To even suggest it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's no value. You gain nothing by making that sort of broad stroke proclamation 4 months, 5 months ahead of time. It's stupid. just as it's worthless that Mike DeWine, went ahead and re-upped his season tickets. That doesn't mean anything. As you said, that's just a symbolic gesture. He's the governor of Ohio. If he didn't do that, Buckeyes fans would eat him for lunch. Number 3, it's much easier right now to kind of accept this as it's May 11th outside and it's 35 degrees and there's snow last night. So as the weather starts to warm up and people start to realize as they get out of their houses and start to go back to normal life. I went to the grocery store Saturday, and I'm telling you, it was more busy in that grocery store on Saturday than I've ever seen my grocery store. And it's the largest, it's the highest selling Kroger store in northern Ohio and Michigan. So it's an always busy store, and I've never seen it like it was on Saturday. People are itching to get out, and I'm not trying to downplay the severity of what's going on around the world, but I think it's pretty obvious to people that the goal has been accomplished, which was to mitigate and to lessen the curve and make sure hospitals were prepared and all. Like, we can't just live our lives in our houses. So at some point there will be concessions made to say, hey, okay, if we're going to move forward, we need to do this. And people will do it, as they've shown in the last 2 months. People were told, stay in your house. We've done it. So now I think people will be told the next thing of, okay, let's make sure we do this, and then it'll get done. But Kate Brown's a made-up name. So.
And Spencer, you put that in one of the Scarlet Sunrise posts last week with the update there for Oregon, Ohio State. I have tried to live by this rule, and I've written it, and I've talked about it on this show, that until we get to June 1, and not just us, but administrators, athletic directors, government officials, there's really no point to speculate what the actual plan is going to be for this season. They don't have to make that decision right now. You still get 3 more weeks of information or more. If you're trying to get to 6 weeks of training camp or that adjusted period, well, that's the middle of July where you could still start the season on time. So echoing what Berm said, to say that you have to go through September right now, that's even a prediction that seems to have no merit to me. But I'll put the question to you. Do you have the enhanced confidence that I asked Jay-Z and Berm about?
I think I do, because the thing about that to me is, okay, if Oregon says, okay, we need to have 30,000 people in the stands if we're going to play football, there's a concession they could make. Okay, we're losing 30,000 seats in our 60,000 seat stadium. I just think to come out and say that if Kate Brown was a SEC or Big Ten governor, that's cause for losing a re-election bid. If you say we're not playing football, I just think it's way premature. I thought it was just kind of a doom and gloom attitude to have. And obviously we look at it from a college football standpoint, and she referenced concerts, she referenced large sporting events. I don't think directly on her mind was Ohio State, Oregon on September 12th, but to look at everything from the perspective of we can't do things until September, October. Well, people aren't going to stay in their houses until then, like Berm said and like Jay-Z said. So it's interesting to me the way different areas around the country are talking about this, because you can be optimistic about what can happen in the fall while still being cautious. I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. And I think we're trying to make everything far too mutually exclusive when it comes to the conversation about getting sports back in this country.
I meant it as a joke, really, with the SEC, and you brought this up, losing a re-election campaign. This is no offense to Oregon, but it's a reminder that college football for these Pac-12 teams in California, Washington, Oregon, that's not as important to them. It's not as important as it is in the state of Ohio or the state of Tennessee or Alabama, where college football is not only something that entertains us every day, but it's a vital part to the economy. And if maybe Kate Brown, again, if that's a real person, as Berm's still skeptical, maybe you would have said, well, we're going to limit this stuff until the end of July or August, because in her mind, she's probably not thinking that the college football season starts in September. I don't mean to make that assumption off a person that I don't know and might not be real, but you would not have heard, I don't think, Jay-Z, Mike DeWine say, we're not gonna do anything through September, because everyone in this state knows what September is.
Well, Mike DeWine said I redid my tickets so everybody gets off his back a little bit. So, listen, guys, I'm buying my tickets. I bought them. We'll see what happens, but I bought my tickets, so why don't you guys get off my back a little bit here? We're opening restaurants. I'm buying my tickets, that sort of thing.
I think the most interesting plan So Tim May and I have both been working on some of the stuff that Gene Smith and Ohio State is talking about right now and kicking around ideas to prepare for this moment. And we don't need to get into all of those, but from a player's perspective, Justin, one idea that they have talked about is not just having the team quarantine in that hotel, down in Grandview Yards for training camp, but potentially the entirety of the season. And to me, I think that there's a big flaw, several big flaws in that plan. But one is can you imagine your team and you're 18, 19 years old being forced to live in that hotel for the entire year? Let's forget about the unique circumstances for a second. I just don't think that you guys would be okay with being removed from society for 4 months when you're a freshman or sophomore in college.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing. Now, that hotel they're in is much better than the University Plaza where we stayed when I was in school. So, they're going to be living a little bit better. But I think at this point in time, I think athletes would probably be okay with that. I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, LeBron came out, well, I'm not going to play if there's no fans in the stands. Well, I bet LeBron would go play with no fans in the stands right now, to say we want to finish the season. I think, these college kids have been going through what they, no spring ball, no this, no that. If you told them this is how we're going to do it and this is how we're going to be able to play a season,
yeah,
you'd say, okay, whatever it takes, let's go ahead and do this. I mean, during the football season, you're spending so many hours at the Woody Hayes. You might as well, have a bed there.
Might as well live there anyway, right?
So, it's like they have so much going on during the fall, you throw school on top of that, you have your study tables, you have this and that. But by the time you get home, it's 8 o'clock anyway. So if you're going to a hotel, if you're going to your apartment, yes, you don't have that getaway feeling where you kind of just relax. All right, I'm out of the football. I'm back in my own apartment. Maybe my roommates aren't football players, that sort of thing. You don't have that. But I think any player, any athlete would say, as long as you're giving me a season and I can go out and I can perform and do what I came here to do, I'll go stay in a hotel for a few months and do what we have to do. So I think they would be itching to get back out. And if that's the way they were able to do it, I don't think they'd have a problem with it.
Michael Jordan would play without fans, just so we know.
Of course he would.
I don't know. He does seem like he cared about the fans somewhat and the way people viewed him, and he wouldn't be as rich as he was without them. I think it's his teammates that he hates, just not the fans.
Well, he wanted to punch Joe for his fans, so there's that every night.
He never punched a fan. He definitely punched his teammates.
I think I wanted 10 more minutes about the Steve Kerr Michael Jordan fight. I feel like that got brushed over too quickly. How many other teammates might Michael Jordan have punched?
You know what I think the biggest upset of this entire Last Dance thing is how the Bulls were able to maintain a regular NBA uniform in the 1990s when everyone else lost their damn mind and had rainbows and mountains and every other
T-Rexes.
Oh, they're all hideous. And then the Bulls are still the classic uniform. And I don't know how the Bulls managed that. I want to know if Jordan had something to do with that.
Well, they did bring in the black pinstripe, right?
But those are sweet.
Those might be the best ones that they have.
Totally different. Those are awesome. The Sonics jerseys, oh my gosh, how bad were those?
I think you're forgetting about the Grizzlies.
I'm not. That's my whole point. The Pistons moved to that weird teal horse. It was just a bad time for everyone.
Okay, so somebody did ask me this about Ohio State's jerseys, and I don't ever have any real insight or care about it. But I do think that the ones that they wore in the Fiesta Bowl should be the new permanent jerseys. I'm just going to say it right there. Is there any? I don't know if there's even more to talk about.
Is that the gray sleeve? Because that's the big thing, right? They kind of went.
Yes.
I think it was my senior year. We kind of went and put the black with the white on the sleeve.
You went to the Wisconsin sleeves.
Yeah. So we went to that. I was just looking up, and the one from we got gray. That's the old school one I have from probably 2005. So it must have been 2006 that they switched that. But I agree with that. I think the gray looks nice. I think it looks the best out of all of them. I don't like switching it up too much. I'm a traditionalist. Ohio State has one of those uniforms that, I don't think should be touched even though you do the things that you do for these recruits and throw these crazy wild, I get that, every now and then, but man, you can't, it's hard to beat the traditional.
Objectively speaking, the ones with the gray sleeves are significantly better looking than the current home and road uniforms, like significantly better.
But the tradition for me lies in the helmet. The tradition is all about the helmet. So just put gray on the sleeves. I don't know why it's so hard. They're just so much better looking.
That's
just so much better.
That's what they were for 50 years.
I know. That's why they're better.
The best ones were the 1968 ones that had the black number on the sleeve. Those were sweet.
Yeah.
Those were really cool.
I can't even imagine what the resistance to putting that back on permanently would be. Like how do you even make an argument that it shouldn't be there? We're all.
I don't know. You can go year in and year out. It's not like the NFL where you have to stay into a uniform for a certain amount of years or anything, is it? Or
no,
but you can also just make the current ones that don't have the gray, make that an alternate, and so wear that once every 5 weeks. Like you can do whatever you want, but the gray sleeve jerseys are significantly better looking than any other Ohio State jersey they have.
I think as long as they can keep whatever uniforms they want, as long as they get rid of those white lab coat things they always wear for the Fiesta Bowl, I think everybody will be much happier.
That was Nike's worst thing ever. They look like they were in a prison, like a chain gang. It was awful.
I don't know if you saw those, Jay-Z, but
I was just thinking back my senior year. Nike gave us. It was a coat to go over, your shoulder pads, and it had your number on it. And I think the quarterbacks may have only got them, but I mean, it was actually kind of cool. Not that you would wear it during the game. So I'm like, all right, this is gonna be sweet at home, but it's just so big, and like you can't do anything with it because I don't have shoulder pads on during the day. So
it seems like it would be impossible to mess up a sweatsuit. It's all it's got to be is gray, like. That's all anybody wants. And they gave Ohio State these just white pants, white jacket. Were they short sleeves too? Like they were.
Yeah, they're super baggy. Like they hang down to their knees. They're just short sleeves all the way to the elbow though, so they're not really short sleeves.
Yeah, so it's not short.
It looked like something that Nelly would wear for the Pimp Juice video.
It was a weird cross between like a boy band and a prison outfit. It was terrible.
Yeah, all right, so maybe we should talk a little about football on this show, Roosters Lettermen Live. I don't know if you guys all saw this or if it was just me, but Justin Fields posted some of his private workout videos from down there. I believe he's in Georgia, close to home, and he looked absolutely jacked out of his mind. I don't know what he's been doing, but the physical transformation, however he's found a gym to work out with, his arms – maybe it was just a trick of the picture, but it looks like he's been doing work. And we've talked about him before on here, Justin, with just that chance to go into year 3. He's maturing into more, of a man. He's 3 years in a college is going to be different than when you arrive as a freshman. If he's packing on more muscle, if he's physically ready, how big of a deal is that, for him this summer, this off season to get ready for year 3 at the college level?
That's a tough one because he is a specimen, last year. And, he's 6'3", fast as all get out. He has all the tools. So to get bigger, stronger, faster, and more mature, it's just going to make him even more of a threat. And as an athlete going into a season knowing, like, I'm in the best shape of my life, it just gives you that confidence of, I can do whatever I need to do out there. If I need to throw this guy off of me and then go make a play, I feel stronger. I feel more adept to be able to do that. But he's a freak of nature anyways, and coming out of high school, the kid could have, he was better shape than I ever was as a senior in college, that's just how they grow these kids nowadays. But, for him he better be bigger because he hasn't had anything else to do except lift and work out here in the last few weeks. So it's good to see that at least he's doing that. But, it just gives you that mindset, that confidence of, hey, I've done the work. I feel it. I can see it. I'm throwing a harder ball or I'm throwing a further ball. It all comes together and it just gives you the confidence. Now, the other side of that is that's great and all, great physical shape, being able to throw the ball through a wall. What's he doing up here is what, be interested in seeing, are they sending film to their iPads? Are they making sure, all right, here's your checklist for the day. I want you to do, first down, first and 10 blitz packages. I want you to do third and long, just different things like that he should be doing mentally, because you're not getting that. You don't get those spring reps. You don't get that sort of thing. So mentally, is he on that iPad? Is he doing what he needs to do to come into that season? Yeah, he's going to feel great. He's going to be the best shape of his life. But mentally, is he going to be as strong? Because as a quarterback, as we all know, you got to be there and be ready to go. And to make that jump that everybody's going to expect him to, if there's a full season and all that, the head is where that's going to be.
So if you were Ryan Day or Corey Dennis, this is a unique challenge for him as a first-time full-time coach now, trying to get through this. You have 1 year in the offense, and Justin Fields probably watched every single game multiple times. He only got those 3 practices, so you didn't have 12 more practices of film to break down. So there's a limited amount that they could draw from for Justin Fields where he's on the field. What is it that you think, if you were in their shoe, that you would want to see as the quarterback, or that you would send as a coach to get that mental part there? What should he be watching?
Gosh, I would probably just go back and be honest. I'd probably send him some NFL film, of a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning, just to see, it's going to be old film, but give him ideas. All right, on this play, they have so much breakdown on that stuff nowadays that you can say, all right, Peyton saw this or Tom saw this and this is what he did. And, have that explanation, get that mind or that thought process going in a quarterback's mind saying, all right, it's third down and long. We know they percentage-wise do this on a third and long. As a quarterback, we call this. They come up and they give you this. What do you do? Just those types of things. I would try and get as much as that as you can, because, they're calling plays and they know they're up in the booth saying, all right, if we get this look, it's checking to here, or we should go here. And for Justin to be able to do that at the drop of a dime on the field, while he's walking up to the thing, that is something that it's going to be hard to do through a video screen, but at least he's done it. At least he's been there saying, all right, they called this play. We didn't get that look that they wanted. We're going to go this way. All right, no, they're blitzing this linebacker. All right, I got to call, and I got to check out of this, and I got to get me a slant on the backside. Just those types of things is what I would try to be throwing at him right now, just to get his mind working and really thinking of walking up to the line of scrimmage, and this is what I'm seeing. What do we need to do? That's how the quarterback takes that next step. He can do everything. Mm-hmm. But can he get up there and say, Coach, I didn't like this look. I knew this is what we wanted. It wasn't there, so I went and I made the change, and I made – a different call, and it worked. That's where that confidence up here as a quarterback just becomes like, I got this. I don't even need you to call a play. I'm at the line of scrimmage. I know what we want to do. I know what they're giving us and how we want to attack it. Boom. We're going to go with it. So it's hard. It's going to be harder to do. Hey, Justin, look at these. And you're sending them videos. Now we can jump on and we can talk about certain things, on a video like this, but it's not the same as getting live reps. But, that's just where everybody's at right now. You got to adjust and adapt to the situation. And I hope, and I'm guessing that they're probably doing things like that with him.
Yeah. Berm, it sounded like, from the conversations that we've had with Ryan Day, the teleconferences over the last couple of months, that he's not doing a lot of that hands-on X's and O's with the individual players. He doesn't have time for it with all the other stuff he's got to do. So that's pressure on Corey Dennis. Feels like 7 or 8 years ago that you were talking to him on signing day. He's kind of he's in an intriguing spot here. Everybody is. It's hard and you have to adjust, but this certainly isn't what he envisioned for the first time that he's being thrown in there with direct responsibility for a Heisman Trophy contender and 2 early enrollee freshmen, and then Gunnar Hoke trying to fit in his second year in the program. This is going to tell a lot about what kind of relationship or impact Corey Dennis can have with these guys.
Well, the good news for Corey is that he has a Heisman Trophy frontrunner as his, leader. It makes that adjustment a lot easier because you know what you have with Justin Fields. You know what you have already. Obviously, the challenge now is how do you elevate him to the next level, and then think about that in the span of this season could be very condensed. It could be an 8-week season. So now all of these workouts and things that Justin's doing now may be beneficial then because he's in better shape for a a season that is not 4 months long. It's only or 2 or 3 months long. I think the interesting thing, as you brought up, is how Ohio State moves on beyond Justin Fields, because you have to start thinking in the world, because of all the uncertainties, we don't know if we've seen Justin Fields last time in a Buckeye uniform. But you have C.J. Stroud, a 5-star quarterback. You have Jack Miller, a 4-star quarterback who were true freshmen, who early enrolled. This spring was so big for those guys as far as the relationship between them and Corey Dennis and the development between Corey Dennis and them, how he helps them get to where Justin is. That's where I think the most interesting thing. To have those guys for 3 practices and then to have to send them home to California and Arizona, that's where things get murky. Justin Fields is the easy part of that equation. I mean, that you know what you have with him. So for Corey, for C.J. Stroud, for Jack Miller, when you're talking, what Justin's talking about here, Justin Zwick, is those mental reps that those guys are missing, I think, is the most important thing, because Justin Fields is a different class of player.
He's on a different level of quarterbacking than those young guys right now.
And because even if he has a mental breakdown, he has the ability physically to save something where other guys may not. For the young guys, like these mental reps, I mean, it's not the same thing for C.J. Stroud to be working out in California by himself. It's not the same thing for Jack Miller to be working in Arizona by himself. So that's where I think things get really interesting as you look beyond. Obviously, recruiting, I am always thinking about what happens 2 years, 3 years down the road. So that's where I start to go, okay, how does Corey Dennis, how does Ryan Day make up for this lost time with those guys? Because I believe C.J. Stroud was going to be the backup quarterback for Ohio State this year. Now I don't think that, because I don't think he can be, because that lost time is just impossible to make up.
Yeah, I wonder, and I was going to ask Spencer about this, if he thought that this would work in Gunnar Hoke's favor or what he sees happening with that race. But, I mean, just – again, to tread into that speculation water that I try to avoid, if you have 6 straight weeks as opposed to a spring and then a couple of months off, I mean, maybe that's something that would work for Stroud or Miller's advantage, where if you're just constantly in it and there's no break in between, maybe that helps them. I don't know. Do you see this as working for Gunnar Hoke's advantage right now, Chives, if they don't get to come back and have maybe that extra 2 or 3 weeks in the summer?
Well, I think it could, but I think the biggest thing – to go back to Justin's point and bring in Burms a little bit, and it all ties together. When you have a Heisman frontrunner as your quarterback who just faced in his last 4 games a Penn State defense that was incredible, a Michigan defense that has Don Brown, Wisconsin defense has Jim Leonard, and then Brent Venables, and he played that well against all 4 of them, you can send all 3 of your other quarterbacks that film and say, this is the level of quarterback play we want at Ohio State. If you want the mental reps, you'll watch this, you'll learn from it. So all 3 of them should come in with a good mental base of what they need to be doing, just because they can watch Justin Fields against the best defenses in the country and just watch him. He picked apart Clemson in that first half. He picked apart Wisconsin in the second half. He did whatever he wanted against Michigan, and then we know what happened against Penn State. They ran the ball pretty well, but he also played pretty well. So I think all of these things can come together, and all these quarterbacks can be almost at an even playing field, because Gunnar Hoke is not raw talent-wise as talented as probably C.J. Stroud is, but he's got a leg up because he's been in the program for a year. Well, if that talent can equate and you can then get C.J. Stroud a leg up, you can have him become the backup quarterback pretty easily, or Jack Miller can be the same thing. So I think as long as they're getting the mental reps and then doing whatever they just need to do physically, I think that it can be an even race coming into the fall. I think at first I thought Gunnar Hoke had the leg up, and I thought Gunnar Hoke was probably going to be the backup quarterback entering the fall. But now, once I think about it a little deeper, you know, Ryan Day can send the highlights from Justin Fields. He can send a bunch of Dwayne Haskins film to surefire first-round quarterbacks and say, this is what we expect out of our quarterbacks. If you come into the program and you're going to be at this level, or at least on trajectory to be at this level, you're going to be the backup quarterback.
To me, the lost time is most felt when it comes to mentally preparing to be a college quarterback, not necessarily watching tape, not necessarily even understanding progressions and that kind of stuff. I mean, the day in, day out work that has to go with being up at a certain time, doing the routine of being in college, that those guys enrolled early to get ahead of that. And then they've lost that. That's where I think the biggest adjustment comes, because you go back to California, you go back to Arizona, you go back to Scottsdale, and Rancho Cucamonga, all of a sudden things are a little bit more laid back. And I think that you need guys who, as Urban Meyer said on the show a few weeks ago, that 4th and 1 every play mentality. And I don't know that you get that in this sort of environment that we're in worldwide, where things right now are like, oh, who the hell knows when we're going to do anything. You don't know if C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller have the ability to flip that switch. We know that Justin Fields, after taking a year off basically at Georgia and coming to Ohio State, we've seen him flip that switch. So that to me is the biggest mental adjustment, not necessarily the football IQ stuff.
I think for those guys, and Jay-Z could probably speak to this, they got 3 months of that, or 2.5 months, which is still better than nothing. They got to go to classes before everything shut down. They got 1 week of training camp. I think all of that is still it's not nothing, and that was the other option. If you're hanging through the summer, like you wrote about Cameron Martinez, Berm, and these guys who weren't able to be there for the spring, they didn't get any of that. They didn't have to go through half of a semester, and I think sometimes maybe we're making too big a deal out of not having those 12 spring practices. We know that they're valuable and they mean a lot, but they also had 6-7 weeks of getting up at 6 a.m. for they went through all the mat drills. They had to go through classes, and they started their college careers that way. And they didn't when they went home to California or Arizona, they didn't just drop out of college. They had to continue to do that while they were there. It's online remote learning. It's not the same. And all of this is true for everything. It's not the same. We get that. But I think that it's not like they missed out on the entire experience, and they probably took a lot of that home with them after having gone through it for 6 weeks and seeing what Justin Fields did every day, and they know that that's what they have to be ready to do when they come back.
No, certainly. I think that, like I said, I think the biggest thing here is understanding your role and understanding where you fit on the totem pole, and you go from being the man on January 1, everyone in your hometown is telling you you're the cat's meow, you're the big kahuna, you're the big cheese. You go to Ohio State for 2 months and you're told, hey, you're not, you're nothing.
Yeah,
you got to work again, and then you go home again, and all of a sudden you're back to being local hero guy. And I think that is when there's some mind confusion happening potentially. And I think the value of those guys being on campus is understanding that they are people who have a lot of work to do. So you hope that they're still feeling that way, but you just don't know. It's 2020, and the way that these kids are idolized in recruiting, I just think that there's a real value in being on campus and understanding a hierarchy of how a program works, as opposed to being home when you're getting taken care of by mom.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is they got the opportunity to see how Mick runs his program in the weight room.
Sure.
I think a lot of these guys probably coming in, right away are like, oh crap, this isn't how I used to work out back, in high school.
Yeah.
So for them to be able to get that short condensed time to see like, wow, this is how they work. Not even football related, in a way. It's just, this is how we work in the weight room. This is the mentality they have in the weight room, or when they're doing their drills or this or that. I think to be able to get a glimpse of that is huge, because then they can at least go back and say, all right, well, those workouts I was doing at home, they were good and they got me to that point, but I've seen the other side and I know what is expected. And if I go back this fall or this summer and I'm not to where that level was when we left, I'm not going to be, I'm going to be behind the 8 ball. So I think that is a plus. I think what hurts the young quarterbacks is, it's all great to watch film and do, that sort of thing, learn the playbook and this and that, but you're not getting those live bullets in practice. That I think is huge, because you go from a high school to college. I mean, it's a pretty big jump. You got some grown men that are playing who've been there for, 4 or 5 years. And you're just this little freshman coming in, not getting those, like, you may walk up to the line of scrimmage like, all right, I've seen this on film. I know what I'm supposed to do. But then all of a sudden you got, Chase Young's not there anymore, but, you have, the D lineman talking to you, talking smack to you, and you got all this other stuff, and all of a sudden a blitz comes, you don't see it, and you get whacked. It doesn't happen so fast up here on the field as it would be like, oh, hey, I've seen this before. Yeah. Those live bullets are what they miss. So, they can study and do everything to prepare themselves as much as possible. But when things start flying and it's live or you're going 11 on 11, that's a little bit different than sitting there, watching the screen.
Yeah. We don't know exactly when that will be. We also would like to stop watching these screens ourselves and get back to the Roosters for a Letterman Live. I miss you guys in person. I miss the mac and cheese bites and wings.
Miss the food, yeah.
The food especially, maybe more so. But we're hoping to get back to that point soon. Not going to make any definitive predictions, but we're hopefully trending that way and getting some optimism back. Appreciate Jay-Z, Spencer Holbrook, Jeremy Birmingham hanging out with me for another week where we survived one more. Hopefully we'll be right back here next Monday after another week of quarantine as things start to open up here in Ohio and get back to normal. We're going to keep talking about college football no matter what. For these guys, I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you next week on Letterman Live, brought to you by Roosters. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Letterman Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Bourne.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Letterman Row.